Hey, ever wonder how you can keep or earn the respect of others? Let's reverse that. Have you ever wondered how you can earn and keep the respect of others? Do you wish you had more confidence and self respect? Today, we're going to cover the one thing that can help you with both of those questions, plus a lot more. Our topic is how to develop true integrity. We'll be looking at the three aspects of integrity, three benefits, and three ways to grow your integrity. Plus, if you stick around to the end, we'll share one bonus thought to use integrity as a tool for finding more purpose and satisfaction in life. And isn't that what we all need, brother? More purpose and satisfaction?
I can't get no.
Yeah, I can't get none, man. Hey, welcome to Dad Save the Internet. Take it away, brother.
Oh, welcome to Dad Save the Internet, like he said. It's a show that teaches guys the great wisdom of the past to help us kind of navigate these treacherous waters of our online world. I am a God-fearing husband, follower of Jesus, father, entrepreneur, and author, and I am Brandon Wilborn.
And I am also a God loving husband, a father, an entrepreneur, a coach. See, that's a little different. And I'm an incessant encourager. And you can call me Dennis Wilborn, the older brother of Brandon.
The elder Wilborn.
The elder. Well, not the elder. The elder's off somewhere in the hinterlands of the
Yes.
U.S. somewhere.
Yes. Somewhere in the hinterlands.
Gallivanting around in the mountains or something. I don't know what he's doing.
So I wonder if he will catch on when this is live. Whether he'll find us or not
That's a
this time.
good question. That's a good question. Because normally I wonder if he'll stick around if he's not having us there to respond to his snarky comments. That's the question. So
Find out.
that's
Find
something
out.
we should point out today. This is not a live stream. You may have noticed we are recording this because
This
the
was
Silver
pre-recorded.
Fox himself is coming to visit, and he's got to be
Yes.
picked up at the airport when we would normally be running this show live. So we are pre-recording. But guess what? It's going to be just like watching live because we're not editing this video. No, we're not.
There you go.
Not a
There you go.
chance.
We are recording live, and then we're just
Yeah.
going to post it as is
Yep.
with no
Yeah. Live to tape.
makeup
Live to
or
tape.
anything else. Yeah.
Well, we never
All
wear
right.
makeup anyway. Live to tape. All right. All right.
Now let's get off these big faces here. There you go. I feel more comfortable. I feel
Oh,
like I have
yeah,
more
that's better.
room.
Ooh. Oh, stretch. Oh, so
So,
tight in that little
integrity.
box.
Integrity.
Mhm.
It's a very
Integrity.
common word,
Yeah.
but people seem to be a bit fuzzy on what it means. So, for instance, I looked up quotes on integrity, and I got some things that are a bit fuzzy. So, let's look here at
Fuzzy.
this first one. If you have integrity, nothing else matters. If you don't have
Mhm.
integrity, nothing else matters. By Alan Simpson, whom I don't know who that is. So I have not
I
vetted and verified that these
haven't
quotes are
vetted
who they
these.
say they
If you
are.
have integrity, nothing else matters. If you don't have integrity, nothing else matters.
But what is
Yeah.
integrity?
Well, I
There's the
mean, as a
question.
sailor, I can tell you what it is because it's
Right,
very
and we'll, and
important
we'll,
for
we'll
us
talk about,
seafaring types.
yes, we'll talk about some of that. But you get quotes like this, and you're like, well, this sounds super important, but what is it?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, next one, integrity is the choice between what's convenient and what's right. Okay. Starting
Mm,
to make
that's
some
a little
level of
closer. Yeah.
definition,
Hmm.
but are
Yeah.
all convenient things wrong then?
I don't know. I've been to a few convenience stores that are definitely not right.
There you go.
You got to try their
Yeah, the
coffee.
convenience
Woo!
store
Not at two
sushi.
o'clock in the
I don't
morning.
know.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, this convenience store sushi. Oh God, that's just a horrible thought. Unless you're in
So,
Japan, then convenience store sushi is
yes.
a okay.
Yes,
Mm,
there might be exceptions to that idea.
mhm.
But
Yeah.
again, is everything right inconvenient? Not
No,
necessarily, right?
not necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not
Hmm.
it's getting at least some definition. So this one I went Billy Graham. Integrity means that if your private life were suddenly exposed, we'd have no reason to be ashamed or embarrassed. Integrity means that our outward life, I have to get around the camera to read that, is consistent with our inner convictions. Yeah, because I can't move the
Go around
screen
the
up and down.
camera.
I have to look around the camera. The camera's right in
Well,
front of that quote.
Integrity means that if our private life were suddenly exposed, we have no reason to be ashamed or embarrassed. Integrity means that our outward life is consistent with our inner convictions. I think that's a very polished definition of integrity.
It's
very nice.
it's definitely a more cohesive concept altogether.
Mhm.
Oh boy.
Unless you are a sociopath, in which case
Unless
you
you're
wouldn't
such-
care about what people think about whether your outward life or inner life were
Right.
exposed either.
Yes.
So
there are again, we get back to the idea of what is right. If you're so we talk about a lot of the quotes are similar to this in that they talk about integrity being when your actions are determined by your values. But what if your values suck? What do you do then?
that's a good point too. Yeah.
Because usually if your values suck, you don't know your values suck.
That's true.
You just
That's
think you're
a
fine.
good point. If your
Like-
values suck, you don't know your values suck.
It's kind of like the guy who's if you got cancer but you don't know you got cancer, you think you're fine. But really,
Yeah.
you're sick.
That's why you don't go to the doctor. I mean, why?
That's why you don't. If you got cancer, you don't go to the doctor. What?
Why would anybody
You
do
should.
that?
You should. Yeah.
You should. You should
Probably-
go get
probably
checked
get that
out. And,
lump checked
but
out.
if you don't go to the doctor, you never get cancer.
It's not
See?
the way it works. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
No. It just stays hidden unless you get a goiter somewhere.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Like certain politicians
like,
we
"Hmm,
might have seen.
That's a new lump.
Uh,
I don't know what that's about.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
going back a little bit further, Francis Bacon, it's not what we
Bacon.
profess, but what we practice that gives us integrity.
Mhm.
And I think,
Yeah.
this
In
is-
other
this
words,
is a similar one.
yeah, it's almost like my favorite Latin motto from my favorite maritime academy that I didn't go to, which
Okay.
is acta non verba, which is the Latin for actions, not words. It's not what
Alright.
we say, it's what we do that makes
Yes, we do.
a difference. Actions,
Batman.
not words. Like Batman?
Yeah, like
Batman.
that, yeah.
Like I'm
begins-
Batman.
Batman begins when he's, it's not who I am inside. It's what I do that matters.
It's been a long time since I've seen that movie. Why is it that all the Batmans all sound like they've got like laryngitis or something? All of them. I got a frog in my throat. Yeah. I don't know. I
I don't know.
can't
There've
figure it
been
out.
some there've been some funny spoofs that really play on that lately.
Yeah, that's
It's
true.
been
Yeah.
fun to watch.
But
No,
so-
I think the action's not verb. So that's one definition of integrity. I want to get into. Let me do a little screen share with the magic of the internet.
the magic of the interwebs.
The magic
We're
of
gonna
the
share the
interwebs.
screen.
All right, we're gonna go
Look,
with
ma, no
Chrome.
hands.
All right, here's what I'm doing right now. We're gonna go to the dictionary. Is that one better? Is that one? No, you need that one.
No, make
There
it
we go.
bigger.
Let's go to
Make
the
it bigger.
Dictionary. There we go.
Zoom into the size. You can zoom in the percentage of the screen.
I
You
can,
make it
can
like-
I?
Well, I mean, I can.
I don't. Yeah,
I
that's
use,
something
I
I
use it
haven't learned how
up
to
to
do
like-
yet. So
It's
I'm
a
just going to
little-
read it as is.
All right, you do the thing.
So I want to start with actually skip number 1 for a second and go with number 2.
I
An
can't even read it.
unimpaired condition
I'm kidding.
or soundness. Hey, you keep it clean here, mister. And number 3, a quality or state of being complete or undivided. And when
Ooh, I
we
like
look at some of these definitions, there's this kind of there's some, or rather the quotes, rather. There's some quotes that are about this idea of cohesiveness and consistency,
Mhm.
which I think gets at the idea of it, the opposite of hypocrisy. Something is as advertised. And then there's this other idea of completeness. Nothing is lacking. And
Well, that is exactly actually both 2 and both 3 match up very well. Well, not both 2 and 3, but they do kind of both 2 and both 3. I teach an English class. You take my class. You learn take English like me. No, both definitions 2 and definitions 3 match up very well with the integrity when I use the word integrity to refer to the hull of a ship. Okay. We
Yeah.
talk about structural integrity,
Yeah.
the
Structural. I mean, that goes
unimpaired
towards buildings and
buildings as well. Yeah.
joints,
Yeah. Buildings as well.
and you
But
get this idea of, yeah, it's strong. It's going to hold up. It's going to stand,
mhm,
and it's complete.
yeah.
It's not like there's a hole
Yeah.
in your hull.
You don't want holes in your hull because then
You don't want
you'd
holes in
be
your joints either, or your
yeah,
buildings.
is exactly. But I mean, but there's this kind of I don't know. I've seen a meme or a quote somewhere floating around like the it compares a ship. Hey, look, it's you.
Yeah.
It compares a ship. Okay, and it says, how does a ship float? A ship floats by keeping the water on the outside of the hull. It does that through
Mhm.
integrity. It's when the water gets on the inside that the ship sinks. It loses its integrity. So what happens what happened was um, the I, I've gone and forgotten what the metaphor was.
It's sound.
Get sleep, people. No, the idea is it's just like in real life. Okay, if you keep the problems of the world on the outside where they belong, you can stay afloat in the world of problems. But
Mm.
if you let the problems in and lose your integrity, then you'll sink. That's
Hmm.
the idea. That's where the
Okay.
metaphor is.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's just like a ship. You want to stay afloat. You don't let the problems in, because that I mean that's really, in my opinion, that starts to be where people lose their integrity is when they start allowing the problems of the world to get in and lead them this way and that way. You know.
Mm. Okay.
You know.
So
Anyway,
that's kind of getting at the third aspect, which is the first definition here.
we'll get into
Firm adherence to a code of especially moral or artistic values or incorruptibility,
that.
which is a really big word. So it's this moral aspect, which I think a lot of the quotes get, they hint at the moral aspect, but they don't always quite get there. So the Billy Graham quote was nice because it did show that they did show that perspective. Oh, there's my book. Oh, cool. If your private
It's
life
my
were
book.
exposed, if you don't have integrity, it's because you're not living up to the morals that you espouse and the values that you espouse, and therefore you're ashamed because you're not living up to them once you're exposed. That makes sense.
No, it makes
And
perfect
then,
sense, and I think that's where I think that's where there's such a disconnect for a lot of people is that they either they have no values or they were raised with values that they are trying to ignore. I think
to
that's where a lot of
ignore
the
or
chaos
reject.
that we see going on in the
Right.
world is that there is a certain inherent moral desire, a desire for these values, and not living by those values creates it what's the opposite of cohesion? Discohesion. I mean, I'm trying to think what happens when things come apart. They're no longer they don't heave together anymore.
Don't adhere.
Adhere
The
to
opposite of
even.
cohesion is
Yeah, see, I'm not the only one. The
just,
English
yeah,
major
yeah,
stumps
yeah, yeah.
too.
Yeah,
All right, so
I
in
am
other
stumped. I
words,
had a late night too.
when things are not consistent, when they're not cohesive, um, you know, then it's oftentimes because you're trying to deny something that's down here in your heart, um,
Mm.
for whatever reason,
Whether
and
it
you,
is a strong desire or a moral value.
mhm, right,
Right.
right,
Yeah. So the idea of the moral side is we do what's right.
hmm yeah,
Whereas the if you take the physical side of integrity and make it into that metaphor, it is the doing and the saying and kind of you are adhered and cohesive in your
Mhm.
presentation to the world and within. And so we talked a little
Mhm.
bit off camera about, this idea of the inner man and the outer man,
Inner man, outer
or
man.
in a biblical reference, it might be body and spirit, where you've
Mhm.
got this flesh versus spirit tension going on, where the body wants one thing and the flesh wants one thing and the spirit wants another. And when you can get to a point of maturity where you can wisdom, where you can put those two together and they're in alignment, that is significant, which I think we'll talk more about later.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing. Is that a point of is it a point of maturity where you have got the two in alignment, or is it a matter of you've got one under discipline? Because I know some people have asked me the same question.
I think, yeah,
Is that a difference between discipline and actually having yourself under having your body and your spirit or soul aligned, so to speak?
I think when I say alignment, I mean that they are both at least working towards the same ends. Now I know that from a biblical perspective, your body is in your flesh, in the way that the New Testament writers would call it, your flesh is
Mhm.
constantly going to be facing desires and things that are not in alignment with the spirit, and the
Mhm.
discipline is required to bring it under control.
Right.
And
That's kind of what Paul implies, and
right,
the Bible in general does. Yeah.
yeah,
That you have to control the desires of the spirit or
through
of
the
the
guys of the
body,
flesh,
of the flesh,
the flesh,
the flesh.
sarx
It just
in the
sounds
Greek.
so bad.
I know.
Yeah.
But I think that
But
is
yeah.
where, if you have it under control and through discipline and through spiritual discipline and through spiritual maturity, because you don't just get discipline when you're fresh,
Yeah.
then
Exactly.
the body starts to submit to that, and then you're able to you're on the right track. And that is how you get this outward cohesiveness, by discipline, right? We're getting ahead of
Yeah.
ourselves a little bit because we talked about
Yeah. We're
we were
getting a
going to
little
talk
ahead
about,
of ourselves here, but yeah.
but that's okay.
Mhm.
So, uh,
Well, why don't you tell
any
us
other
about
thoughts on that? Consistency would be the other
well,
factor, and not just cohesiveness in what you present, but over time, that consistency. Because once you've lost integrity, it's gone, right?
is it gone? I mean, is it gone, or is it something like? I mean, is it something that you can repair? Because I don't think that once you've lost integrity, it's gone. I think maybe to a certain
Well,
extent you've
okay.
lost your
In
reputation with others. Yes. Is it something that you can work back towards? Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah,
is it something that God's going to forgive you for if you lose your integrity? I sure hope
right,
so. I
but
mean, He's
in
the one who said you 7 times, 70 times you have to forgive people.
right,
Um,
but as far as
so
just in the moment of,
Oh,
if you have
once you betray
integrity,
your once you
the
betray that, it's
moment you
gone for that
betray it,
moment. Mhm.
it's not something you possess anymore, even on a little bit. I mean, because
No,
once there's a hole in the boat,
no,
you can try to
it's
repair
trust
it.
me, it's hard work to get a hull repaired while the water's coming in. It's
Right,
really hard. So
right,
you don't want to be repairing the integrity of the vessel of yourself while dealing with all of that other stuff. You have to
right.
maintain the integrity in order to prevent that other stuff. Because if you try to fix it after the fact, is not fun, and you never know. It's a touch and
So
go situation. You may go down.
that's why I say the consistency has to be maintained over time. The
Sure,
integrity
sure,
has to be
absolutely.
maintained over time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Before we get on, we're going to talk about some of the benefits that integrity brings when you have developed it or built it or repaired it.
Mhm. Well, I
Uh,
thought you were going to
but
talk about some other guys who adhered to a strict moral code. These
some other
guys who were
guys.
like monks, and then they had to go hunt for a treasure.
That was going to be, yeah,
Because
that was going to be on the radar here. There you go. You want to talk about guys who discipline themselves and
That's right.
adhere to a strict moral code? Monks are pretty high up there in most people's books. You know,
And these
when
dudes,
you have
these dudes in
completely
this book.
separate.
Hmm.
Yeah. So this is my first published work, The Treasure of Capric. It is about some monks who find out that things are not what they thought they were. And so now they have to go on an adventure to protect and actually not protect, but reclaim the treasure that they thought they were protecting. So you can read about it, see their discipline amounts, and especially their physical and warrior spirit discipline in The Treasure of Capric, the first book of the
Yes.
King of the Caves, soon to be followed by the second book of the King of the Caves, hopefully. But you can
I sure
find
hope
it
so.
at books2read.com/treasure of Capric. That's books2read.com/treasure of CAPRIC.
Yes. And dude, that is such a good book. The part about, I really love how they deal with the challenge of maintaining their integrity, because there's a couple of moments where it's touch and go. I don't want to give anything away. I don't
Touch
want
and
to give
go.
anything
Yeah.
away, but there's some
Yeah.
touch and go moments with the integrity thing. So it really quite a good story to go along with
Yeah.
this. Go check it
Yeah.
out, books2read.com.
I'd say the biggest one is when you have made a promise, what happens when the circumstances dramatically change? What do you
Mhm.
do? That'd be the biggest question I would think for that main character. So
Yeah.
okay.
All right.
So let's get to it, man. How are we? Before we run on, I just want to throw some biblical verses up here
Okay.
and
Bible
say
versus rock.
Bible verses. Let's switch tabs here and go to. Let's see if it'll let me do this. It won't let me do that.
No, I won't let you do it. I learned this
I'm
the
gonna
hard way.
remove that.
You have to
Stop.
put in the book
Reshare.
where you have
Hmm?
to share exactly what tab you want to share. Otherwise, it
Yeah.
won't work.
I mean, you
It's
can just share
annoying.
the window, but
Yeah, but then everybody can see all your tabs, and it's like,
all your
well,
tabs.
all
So
your
we're gonna
tabs, and
look at
then your
some
integrity's
Bible
out the window.
verses about integrity.
Okay, cool. I love it. Bible
All my
verses about
tabs.
integrity.
All right. So
Yeah,
the
all your
first one is
tabs.
really clear. Proverbs 11:3. The integrity of the upright guides them, but the unfaithful are destroyed by their duplicity.
Ooh, duplicity.
So this
Is that
idea of
like those
hypocrisy,
little
right?
cities for those? So for the little children,
No,
not
not
like
Duplo City.
Lego City, not Duplo City. Okay, I thought it was
Duplicity.
for the toddler city. Now,
Duplo City, yeah.
Duplo
What?
City.
They put
What?
them in the Bible? So
Sorry.
duplicity being two-faced, right? Being
Mhm.
not the same on the inner man and versus the outer man.
Yeah.
Is
Well,
showing,
I mean, yeah, having two different natures, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Important not to have that.
They're two-faced. Yeah.
But integrity is where we are whole. We are unified. We are presenting the same face at home or out in public, right? This one
Right.
gets a little bit into
Now,
a
hey,
different.
does that count? I have a question on that one because,
Okay.
A lot of people, especially now, I heard a lot of people talk about this during the pandemic, when everybody was locked down and everybody started working from home,
Mhm.
and I heard people say, "Oh my goodness, my husband sounds so different when he has his work voice on," or my wife, yeah, she sounds like a totally different woman when she's got her work voice or personality or something. So does that count as having two faces, or is that just a work persona and a home persona?
I think we all fill different roles. I mean, I speak to my wife very differently than I speak to my children.
Yeah.
There's that. But I'm not.
That would
I'm
be
going
really
to.
weird if you talk to everybody like you talk to your kids. Oh, that's so sweet! Wow, that's
Excuse me. What do you think you're doing?
Sorry, I was thinking
And
you
now
would be
is
more positive
when
role. You're
you
like, "Hey, what are you doing?"
apologize. I think you need to say a
Say you're
sorry
sorry.
and
Say
shake
you're
hands
sorry.
with him, that complete
Mhm.
stranger over there. Yeah, you
Mhm.
don't do that because your
Yeah.
role in that situation is different.
Right.
Because my responsibility to my children is to train them up and raise them up to learn these lessons, right? Hopefully, I've married a
So
woman who already knows many of these lessons, but
Mhm. You
occasionally
don't have
we
to
might
share
have to
those
remind
things
each
with them.
other.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, there's a difference in role between peers and authority levels and things like that. So I think no, it's not necessarily different unless you are the honest, upright
Talking.
person at home,
Mhm.
but at work it's beg, borrow, and steal.
Yeah, exactly right.
That's when
Yeah,
it
that's
comes in
that's
as
the
different,
that's the key difference there.
which
If
actually
you
fits the
yeah,
second one here.
uh-huh.
Better the poor whose walk is blameless than the rich whose ways are perverse. And it's not saying better poor versus rich. It's saying better the one whose walk is blameless, even if they're poor,
Mhm.
than the person who's perverse, even if they're rich. Which I think
Absolutely right.
we
And I
see
think
that
most people would agree with
distinction.
that.
Yeah, and we see
I
that
think
distinction.
most
I think in
people.
our
Mhm,
many of our
mhm.
celebrities. They might be rich, but I would
Yeah.
not want to live their values.
No way. Gosh, no. It's twisted and dark, and you can sense it. You can see it, and I think anyway.
Although
I
many
think
of
I'll keep
them
my
are
opinions to
not
myself about
necessarily
that one.
hypocrites because the things they espouse, they also do.
That's true. I wouldn't call them hypocrites. I just wouldn't say that they're. I would say that they are perverse in many cases.
Yeah,
Not every case, obviously, but I mean,
yeah.
that's
Hypocrisy is not the only vice. So
that's the fact.
First Peter
Although you'd think it some
3:16.
days, these days,
Yeah, yeah.
hypocrite. Anyway.
All right, keeping a clear conscience so that those who speak maliciously against your good behavior in Christ may be ashamed of their slander. So, in this case, doing what is right, even against you know malicious talk, it's a good thing.
And that there's a lot to be said for that because there are times when people are going to say nasty things about you, even if it's not true.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do when people do that? Well, you just have to keep your conscience clear and know that God protects everybody in the end. I mean, I had a situation way back a long time ago. Um, and a guy told some horrible stories about me, and I tried to get me fired from my job. But because I had a clear conscience and a large amount of evidence to back me up, he lost his job instead. So that was a long story, very short. So, but
Okay.
key point, I kept my conscience clear
Yeah.
because I didn't do anything that deserved to be, uh, you know, now none of this
Yeah.
has to do with being a Christian because I wasn't a Christian at the time, but I still had Christian values.
But you had values and you believed in some ethics, so you were at least
Yeah.
making some efforts.
Mhm.
And I think that is one point we can make again. We've made it before. You can do moral things even if you aren't Christian.
That's right.
And there's, in fact, many times people who aren't Christian, because of their personality or their upbringing or something, it's easier for them in some cases.
Yeah.
But that Christianity is not just about being moral.
Well, no, Christianity is
that's
not.
supposed to be
Christianity is about
the growth.
Yeah, it's about acknowledging that we're all fallen creatures, fallen beings, and we all need the redemption of Christ. That's what being a Christian is
Yeah.
about. It's not about being perfect. And you want to talk about the biggest hypocrites in the world are some of the people who claim I'm a Christian, so and they act holier than thou, which I do not refer to those people as Christians, but as churchians. But I don't want to get too much into that because
Okay.
they follow
All right.
they follow the church, not Jesus. So
I think this one wraps it up. And the Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in people who are trustworthy. And so we've got
Amen.
now speaking right, doing right, and being unified in that, being having integrity. So even a simple, quick run through, you've got a biblical perspective that integrity is important. And it almost seems like maybe the dictionary was using some of those ideas when they wrote their definition for integrity.
It's kind of a big deal, yeah. The dictionary. It's like, wait, was the dictionary using things from the Bible? No, come on, they wouldn't do that.
Yeah. In fact,
All right. So, what are some of the things?
Merriam-Webster was a very strong Christian when he developed the first dictionary.
I thought Merriam was a guy and Webster was a guy. I
Webster
thought
was
it
a
was
guy.
two people.
Yeah,
Webster
there
was a
two
guy,
people who
and
joined
there was
eventually, but
another
yeah.
guy named Miriam, right?
But Webster was a very strong Christian when he
Mhm.
developed the very first dictionary, and wanted that to be something that would be a glory to God to
Yeah,
define
right
words.
on. What do you think he would
So,
say about his new definition of women?
I
Anyway, go
haven't
look it
read it,
up if you
so I
don't
don't
believe
know.
me. You haven't read
I
it.
don't
Okay.
know.
Yeah.
But
Okay. Anyway,
definitely things are
yeah, you'll have to
changing.
check it out. You'll have to check it out. It's very
So
interesting. All right.
let's
So,
move
what
on
are some of the
here and look
benefits
at,
of all this cool
yes,
integrity,
all
honesty,
this
integrity?
integrity.
Uh huh. All
I
right.
respect. We already hinted at that one in the beginning. Respect.
Mm-hmm.
You will have better relationships, honestly, when people respect you and you because you've earned it.
Yeah.
If you're demanding respect,
Mm-hmm.
that's not going to work out as well. But
Mm-hmm.
when people genuinely respect you, they treat you better, and it's more kind of a mutual benefit thing. So I think that's what the biggest one for me, or not the biggest one, but that's the first one.
Well, without a doubt, I mean, respect is something, and that crosses. Listen, that crosses boundaries, that crosses cultures, that crosses
Mm-hmm.
languages. I've been here in Korea for almost 10 years, and the respect that I have earned here in the town that I live. It's a small town, but I'm recognized around here as a man who is honest, keeps his word, and has integrity.
You're
And
also recognized as the tall white guy.
well, there is that, the tall white guy, yes, but he's the tall white guy who smiles and says hello and is honest and has integrity. But yeah, I do what I say, and I always strive to make sure that it gets done. And because of that, even though my Korean is still at a very basic, maybe upper beginner level, not quite intermediate. Anyway, I get around, but people still know that they can trust me if they need me for anything. Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And that's a good thing, because if something does go wrong, if I make a mistake or something, I don't have to feel so guilty. And I'm also less likely to make mistakes because I'm living the life that I say I would.
Yeah,
You
I you hit on the second one that I came up with there, was less guilt.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of going back to the Billy Graham quote of if something was exposed about your life in private, would you be embarrassed? And
Mm-hmm.
if you have done nothing that is wrong, then no, you shouldn't be embarrassed, and you won't be. You have to worry about keeping track of the truth if you don't lie. You don't have to worry about fixing the mistakes if you are always honest and have integrity and do your best in those things, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. And if you just maintain that upright walk, you can never go wrong. Look, I live in I live in a neighborhood that is like a mixture of foreigners and Koreans, mostly Koreans at this point. It used to be a lot more foreigners here, but there are a lot of bars for Westerners on this street. And there's a lot of women who are out there looking for guys to buy them drinkies. And look, more than one occasion when I've seen guys allow themselves to succumb to temptation or or something like that. And they could, if their wife is back home, they might end up with a ruined relationship. They have they have literally end up with no respect. We was talking about respect amongst the people in the neighborhood. And that's one of the biggest things. The gossip on this street, the street that I live on. Oh my goodness. It's like
you said it was a small town.
It is like it is a small town, but I mean, everybody knows everybody else's business. But one of the things I'm happiest about is that even though I live in the midst of all this, it just goes around me like a whirlwind, and that doesn't affect me. It just it doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect my family, and that's a beautiful thing because we walk with integrity. I never have to worry about uh, any of the other stuff, you know. And it's brilliant. It's a wonderful way to live. And because I can walk down the street with my head held high, and I do walk. I walk every day, and I walk a lot, or
And
run
you're
or
tall.
whatever. Yeah, and I'm tall, so which makes me even taller because I put my head up, hold my head up, and with my head held high, I don't have to worry about how people are thinking about me because I know that you know I have nothing to be ashamed of.
Right. And that is exactly the third point that I thought up was you have more confidence. For third benefit. Yeah, when you've done nothing wrong, you don't have to be tentative. You don't have to be feeling people out necessarily. You can just be you,
Hmm.
and you that automatically leads more confidence. You're not trying to
Yep.
please people
Hmm.
just for the sake of pleasing them. You're not trying to hide things from them. You just get to be you, and that is awesome. Um,
Hmm.
I learned a solid lesson from the president of the seminary that I went to. I mean, I didn't necessarily learn it from him, but I heard it explained well by him, and specifically in situations like you were just talking about, where there is temptation from the opposite sex, or
Hmm.
temptation to misbehave in that way, in some other way. That he talked about being faithful to his wife and saying, deciding beforehand, I'm going to know how I act if that temptation presents itself, and just making up my mind beforehand. And tell you what, it's a lot easier to resist temptation when you've already made the commitment to resist it.
Oh yeah,
And so you
without a
can
doubt.
walk into situations with a lot more
Mhm.
confidence, knowing not only have I done nothing wrong to be ashamed of in this moment, but also I am going to prevent myself from doing those wrong things that might lead to my shame. And that
Mhm.
may be just be going to certain places, but it's also engaging in certain activities.
Right.
Um, you know, we would be here for another hour if we were going to talk about specific details and things like that. But that might
No,
just be,
yeah, exactly. But
meeting
but
with with another person, regardless of the circumstances. You got to
what
be you can protect your integrity, and that can give you more confidence because you already know
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not going to mess up, at least in
Mhm.
that
Well,
area.
but yeah, at least in that area of women or whatever it is that you're struggling with. I mean, if you struggle with other things, I mean, if you're even if you're not married, if you're a young man, I mean, gosh, uh,
Hmm.
I used to struggle when I was single and younger with you know pornography and stuff like that, and
Which is
it
most men.
is
We all go through that
and
when we were
yeah, yeah.
exposed to when we were young.
Uh-huh.
So
But I tell you, it sucks. It really sucks the life out of yourself, out of your. It sucks the confidence away from you.
mm,
You know, eh, breaking
yeah,
free from that right there. So making the decision to step away from that um, is huge. That's the first step, and but then also um, just constantly reminding yourself of how you want to be and removing that kind of remove the temptation from your life but also remind yourself constantly of how you want to be um and remember who you were designed to be, who God made you to be, because God
I want
made
to
you to
take
be
a little side
yeah.
tangent here.
Uh-oh.
Uh, Talking about this
Change
temptation
of
stuff. I know
direction.
we were well, maybe I should wait until our next section where we're talking about, ways to actually improve your integrity or restore it potentially. Um, but the temptation one is a big one because we already talked about that conflict between the spirit and the flesh or the body.
Hmm.
And the temptation one is kind of the hinge, I guess, for whether we are keeping integrity or not, and whether we are able to have that self-respect and confidence or not, or lack of guilt. Temptation is a big factor. So I at least some point want to address temptation on this call.
It is something we need to talk about because yeah, it is something that definitely affects every man. Well, it affects everybody. I mean, but every person. But I mean, we're talking specifically for men and two men here. And look,
Yeah.
this is something that everyone has had to deal with on different levels. Some people are still dealing with the types of temptations, and if we can talk about practical ways to combat, because it is a battle between spirit,
yes,
and your flesh, the body, the carnal nature,
not to mention the external
yeah,
things
plus
that
the
are
outside
trying
world
to pile
and
on as well.
yeah, so I mean, all of that stuff adds up, and if you aren't armed, prepared, and made ready to face up against it, it's gonna take you out, and you need backup, you need help, and all that kind of stuff.
This pre-decision factor is kind of it's a practical way to improve your integrity or help to restore it. But I think that the temptation comes first. So if you know how to deal with the temptation, it helps you with the pre-decision, and kind of all these things create kind of a positive feedback loop in your either spiritual or psychological perspective, to help you deal with it and help you get those benefits and increase that integrity. So before we do that, why don't you tell us about your English class? Or
whoa, my gosh, my English class, man, I tell you what. Well, actually, things are just absolutely always in motion in the world of the crazy world of language instruction. And and you never know when you are going to learn something new. I have been coaching people for 5 years now, and absolutely love coming up with new stories and new things to go along with that. Because of that, I am also excited that I'm now able to bring on new coaches for people who have always wanted to teach, or who are just looking for something to do in their spare time. But more importantly, if you're looking for a way to break out and become an entrepreneur yourself, and you have knowledge, you don't have to be a teacher, you don't have to be an English teacher, you don't have to be a certified teacher. What you need is the desire to pass on your knowledge and your information and the things that you know. And if you want to do something like that, let me know, because I would be happy to mentor you. The link is just send me a message at instagram.com/allaboutEnglishLearning, with little underscores between all the words, and you can search for me there. I would love to talk with you about how you can become a coach or a teacher and pass on all of your life's experience. It's really fun too, man. It's like, it's the best job I ever had. I'm not gonna lie. So, all right.
Okay, that's cool.
That's
cool
all I got to say about that. It really is the best job I've ever had.
Or you could always
being a dad is the best. And you can also leave a comment in this video too. Just say, I want to do that. Big all capital letters.
And we can reach out.
I want to do that too.
And get you connected. I want to do that too.
Yeah, I'm just adding words.
Fair enough.
All right, cool. So how do we improve? How do we develop our integrity? How do we get our integrity back if we start to lose it?
All right. My first one, and this helps to deal with the temptation as well, is know what's right.
Yeah.
if you don't know what's right, or you think something is right when it's really wrong, you are not going to have that moral integrity, for one,
Mhm.
but you're going to struggle to do what's right. Or if you're conflicted about what, there are plenty of situations that come up that are pretty gray, and it can be hard to decide which path to take, or which way to go. I've got dogs barking now suddenly.
I hear the dogs bark. It sounds like it's a bog darking time. Dog barking, dog barking time.
Somebody rang the doorbell.
Well, that'll happen. Dogs
Yeah.
do like
Middle of the
to
day.
bark at doorbells. How dare somebody
So
ring the doorbell in the middle of the day? Anyway, so what does that look like? Knowing what's right, because there's a lot of people out there who claim to know what is right, and I don't know what is right about that or wrong about that. But let me tell you what I think. While Brandon talks to the dogs, so you're gonna find people out there saying something is right. And well, there's a dog barking again. I don't know what
she's still going.
Oof, oof. Anyway, help me out here, bruh. I was in the middle of talking about what's right and what's wrong, what's not right. There are people who are going to say they know what's right. For example, okay, there are certain doctors in the world who are out there espousing that it's right to encourage people to, especially children, who believe that they are not what they are. Does that make sense? They do believe they are not what they are. In other words, they're out there trying to get children to affirm for children that believe that they are not the gender that they are born with, or that they are evidenced as. And they claim that it's right to do that. You know what I'm saying? So how can we say that that's right? And when
you went straight for one of the strongest. You went straight for one of the most controversial examples.
And I know, and
here.
I'm so tired right now.
What's funny is, I mean,
straight.
if you surveyed people, you would find that even among doctors, this was not commonly understood a few years ago to be normal or right. And you get to a question of right from a moral sense versus right from some other sense. But if it's not
see, I think
morally,
this is one of those things that is neither morally nor scientifically right. It's not correct.
I would agree with you that there,
and
yes, but I'm saying people will try and make
but it
that
is
distinction
politically correct.
Saying, well, there you go. It is politically popular to a certain crowd, but again, morally right. This is where you get this idea of knowing what's right. Well, how do you know what's right?
Well,
do you rely on your own? Do you rely on your own ideas? Do you rely on whatever is inside in your feelings? Like, because your feelings.
Well, that's what I was trying to get to.
Saying a few years ago, almost nobody thought that was right. What's changed? Our feelings. The science hasn't changed.
Right.
And so,
yeah, exactly right. The feelings have changed. Right? The feelings have changed. But have the feelings really changed, or is it just that the talking points have changed? Because I'm pretty sure, like you just said, if you did a survey, you would probably find that the feelings for the majority of people have not really changed. Now, there are maybe a lot of confused children that have changed,
but there are quite a few people who have heard this as a new thing and been convinced, even though they would have rejected it just a few years ago.
Right.
They have been
and
essentially kind of led by the nose.
Did they have
morality?
Did they have any actual concept of what is right and wrong 5 or 10 years ago, or were they just going with the flow back then? Because I mean,
That is a solid question.
that's I mean, because the same people who you know, espouse liberty and freedom to do anything with their body that they want to, are also the ones who are the first to demand that you don't have a right to do what you want with your body if you want to deny taking a certain shot,
Or with your thoughts or with your speech.
or with your thoughts or with your speech.
So I
Yeah.
think this is the key factor, is how do you know what's right? If you actually want to improve your integrity, I think it's clear. If your morality changes without really any significant new information that would change it and reasonably change it, then you're on sand. You're just going by feelings, or you're going by what's popular, which is not automatically moral.
Right.
And so there's got to be an objective way to know. Your conscience will guide you. Even the people who have been convinced, their conscience is not.
I'm not convinced that they're fully convinced, is what I'm saying.
Right.
I think that their conscience, I think that their conscience does speak differently than what their which I think is why their minds are broken. Their conscience is saying one thing, and their worldview is saying another thing, and that's why they scream and yell, and they're always absolutely unhinged unless they are talking to their people.
Well, the one you see on video, at least.
Well, yeah, but I mean, show me ones that aren't, that are reasonable and are able to have a conversation, who believe these things, who are able to have a conversation without name calling, without anything like that. Anyway, I digress. I don't want to get into that. I want to talk about how to know what's right. One of the things, I mean, even if you're not a Christian, one of the ways that you know one of the ways that I think you can know what's right is, does it harm anyone? I'm not saying that's the only way.
I think you could start before that. Okay. And say, does it align with reality?
Okay, there's that.
So
that's a really good one.
I mean, one way you can know
with reality.
Yeah, is if you are fighting against something that is real and trying to say that it is not real, or trying to say that something that is in your mind or in your imagination is real, automatically it's not. You're not being within integrity or cohesive with reality. That's a break. Automatically, the integrity is lost. If somebody comes along and says, I'm the Queen of England,
no,
you already know
exactly,
that they don't have integrity.
Exactly right. Yeah, you have to start by calling things what they are, including yourself, including yourself.
And that, okay? We're going to get back.
I'm not
to
a jelly donut.
Later
I'm not an attack helicopter. I'm not a child. I'm not a woman. Okay. Sorry. I'm a jelly donut. Ich bin ein Berliner. No, I'm not.
I know.
Don't believe me. Look it up, kiddos.
I mean, same thing with looking at making claims about science that maybe distort the research, or that cherry pick things. I mean, there's all kinds of ways we can have logical fallacies that distort reality and distort truth, that is not moral, and automatically that is a breach in the integrity.
Immediately
because
lying,
we're not aligned with reality. So reality is the first one, and then you can look at what you said.
Right. And now, what happens if, like many people, you know, and this, I think, is a tragedy, and it's absolutely horrible, is that there are many people out there who have every intention of being moral and doing what is right, but they believe, maybe not scientific people, but they believe the stories that they hear as true. Even though, if they took the time to look deeper, but they don't. but at face value, something looks true. I mean, where does that line? Where does that
Where's
lie
that line?
on where does that lie on the level of integrity? So I mean, I
Mm.
want to be a good and honest man, but everything, and I think that I am being one, but everything I've been told is a lie. What then?
I think
Does that
I think this is where the looking at those different aspects of integrity comes in is you can be. That's why that's why I left the moral aspect of integrity for the last piece, is
Mhm.
because you can, if you're a jerk to everyone around you and you're a jerk to yourself, you have integrity, but you're not moral. So you don't have moral integrity. You might have action and speech integrity, but you don't have the part that really matters, which is what
right?
everybody says that you should encourage and foster, is do the right thing, say the right thing, think the right thing, and that
Especially
makes you have
for
integrity,
and to other people.
especially for and to other people. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And so
but I
yeah,
mean, yeah,
if you've been deceived, um, you're still not being moral if you've walked into deception. If you, I think just as often, and we'll get into this. This brings up the temptation factor. Just as often, I think we hear something that is false, and then we talk ourselves into it. So we can be deceived, but we also deceive ourselves into thinking, oh, well. And you go back to the garden to see this.
hmm
The snake comes in and gives a deception.
yeah,
He misrepresents what God says to Eve.
intentionally,
And
yes.
then Eve looks at it and says, oh, there could
Well, it
be
is
some
good
benefit
looking.
here. And
Yeah, it
so
looks
she
good.
deceives herself and takes
Mhm.
that in and accepts it. And then the
And then
flood
Adam says,
occurs.
"Well, she gave it to me."
Right. Well, and then after that, the blame occurs. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole blame game. But
Let
so
me
here's
jump
one of
over
the
real
things.
quick. Yeah. Go ahead.
One of the things that before you jump over, one of the ways that I approach that is if a person, if you are willing, all right, you may have been told lies and been fed a line of deceptions, but if you are willing and able to listen to other arguments, then I would say that you are still living that you are living with integrity, or at least trying to. Because if you're willing and
If you are
if you're seriously
sorting
seeking the
things and
truth,
trying to seek the truth, yes.
right? Uh, it's the people who refuse to hear any other arguments, uh, who call you names, yell at you, talk you down. Those people are definitely not living with integrity.
Not with
Or maybe
moral.
they're living with their own integrity. They're not living with morality
Yeah.
because
But I
they're
think
not
this
living
is
the
where
truth.
you can take out you can pull apart the definition of integrity.
Right. They're not
And
living with the moral
have
part.
this piece over here and this piece over here,
But
but you
again,
really you need all of it
it's not
to say you have
cohesive
integrity.
because it's a broken. It's not rooted in the
Exactly.
truth. So therefore, if it's not
Exactly.
rooted in the truth,
Right.
it's not cohesive. Anyway,
Right.
what you're gonna slide over
So that, I
somewhere else?
mean, this is one of those areas where you could get quickly to, you know, we're all about as cohesive as a colander. I mean, you come down to it, we all believe some kind of lie. We all do some kind of wrong. We all speak some kind of misrepresentation of some sort, whether by admission or omission.
Mhm.
And we're gonna pull all that together later, but we're doing our best and we are trying to seek the truth. Is it what you're saying?
That's what I was
We are
saying.
at
Yes.
least seeking and going in that direction, even
Mhm.
though if the full truth were laid bare, all of the holes would be
Oh,
visible.
we'll never see the whole truth until the day
Right.
of Jesus' return. You know. So.
So when we talk about
Mhm.
conscience and I think that is one area. What we're looking at for knowing the truth is some objective standard.
Mhm.
You can't get there without an objective standard,
Right.
which means it has to come from outside all of us because we all have our own biases and problems.
Yes.
So, as a Christian, Scripture
Well,
is the outside objective standard.
that's what I was going to say, but yeah.
You may go with a different philosophy. You may go with a different book, but then you still have to do the research to say, okay, this is, from my ability, the best that I can get towards something that is actually true, without, even if I don't want it to be.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of times people go to religious sources and they want something to be true, so they find the parts they like. But you got to take all.
Well,
of it.
yeah, it's like Thomas Jefferson, who cut out all the parts that he didn't like from the Bible, so that he could could say all, he left in all the parts that he agreed with. You know,
Yeah.
I know people, you know, and I don't know if that's
So-
actually a true. I don't know if that's a true story, but I've heard that.
Oh no, it is a
I
true
read
story
that.
that he had his own thing that he cut out a bunch of stuff. So I'm going to pull this up about temptation, and I wish I could.
Mhm.
Let me see if I can make it bigger here.
Okay, make it bigger.
I can make it a little bit bigger.
You should be able to zoom it right in. I mean,
I zoomed it in the other way.
Oh, okay.
There you go. So, when tempted,
Okay.
no one should say, God has tempted me, for God cannot be
Mhm.
tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone.
That's right.
But each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. So I want to stop there and say,
Yeah.
again, the temptation may have some outside inspiration, outside source, but on the inside, you desiring that. I mean, if it, getting back to what we talked about before, you've already decided that you're going to be faithful to your wife. So when some woman is outside the bar trying to entice you in, you're not going to be enticed, because that is not something you desire.
Yeah.
You desire the faithfulness and your relationship with your wife more.
Exactly.
So that
Exactly.
excludes you from that. So this person,
And yeah,
or each person being tempted, is something inside that tempts
Mhm.
them towards the evil.
well, yeah. I mean, and who knows what it is? I mean, it could be, you know, maybe you don't have a good relationship with your wife. Maybe you had a fight with your wife. Maybe you had any kind of any number of things,
Right.
and those kinds of things are going to they're going to damage or weaken your integrity. Because
Mhm.
everybody has fights with their wife. Show me one married man who never had a fight with his wife, and I'll show you a liar. The point being, just because you had a fight doesn't mean that you can give into the temptation, right?
Right.
And so,
And I think-
you've got that. You have to have a deep down why to hold that together in your mind before you go put yourself into a position of temptation.
So I wanted to pull the rest of this up here. After desire has conceived, which is a interesting word, it gives birth to sin. So the desire comes, whether it's an outside inspiration or motivation, something inside you wants that. When you give in, it conceives, and sin is what is the result. And then when sin is full grown, it leads to death.
It gives birth to death. Ooh.
Which is poetic right there.
Yeah, it is poetical.
So knowing the truth.
What was that last part? What was that last part? Go on down there. Hold on. Don't be deceived. We're just talking about deceit.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, I just like that part. Don't be deceived.
So there's that part.
And sisters. When did they add the sisters part?
We'll jump forward here real quick, because I'll go to James 4. You get one of the ways to avoid that or resist that temptation. Submit yourselves to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you.
Yes.
So you can work to resist some temptation if you have submitted yourself to God. That's an important factor.
Key point. You have submitted yourself to God. Go back down just before you run away.
Before I run away.
Before you run off to, where was that? Submit yourself to God. Well, don't highlight it for me, because now I can't see.
I'm
um,
highlighting it for the folks.
oh, for the hoax. Okay. It says, come near to God and he will come near to you. He says, oh, he calls them double minded. I was looking to see if that was a
Right.
double minded bit. That's not the double minded
Which
part
would be
I
lack of
was.
integrity. No, it
Yeah.
is. Wash your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded.
You double minded, right? Because double minded is that lack of integrity, is that two
It's
faced,
hypocrisy. Yeah.
duplicitous, hypocritical, not hypocrisy, hypocritical person.
So
It's,
knowing what is right, find that objective source.
Mhm.
Then once you know, you're going to be tempted to go against what you know. So here's one way to deal with temptation.
That's right.
Here's an even better one if you are a Christian. That was James 1 and James 4. And then in 1 Corinthians 10, we get
1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse number.
Oh, you're funny. Where did it
Um,
go? Did I go to the wrong
I don't know
spot?
which one are you looking for? Help me out, and I will help you find it.
No one is tempted beyond. There we go. No temptation. Verse 13.
Yes.
10:13.
No
No
temptation has
temptation has
overtaken you.
except what is common. Everybody
Yeah,
goes through it. God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you're tempted, he will provide a way out so you can endure it. So resist and look for the escape hatch that God opened
that's right.
because he's promised it'll
Yeah,
be there.
it
If
will
you're a
be there.
Christian.
It will be there, but you're not going to see it if you're not close to God. If you're not staying close to God, you're not going to see the escape hatch. The escape hatch is only there. It doesn't have the flashing light on, like on the airplane, and the little green lights on the floor. You got to be paying attention to God and close to Him. That's what Jesus was always talking about. You know, stay close to God. Stay.
Yeah.
I'm the branch, and you are the branches, and stay connected with
Yeah.
the branch, and you'll produce fruit and all that stuff, and you'll know where
Well,
the
how do you
escape hatch is.
how do you stay connected in that verse is obey my commandments.
Right.
You have to know what
Obey
those
my
are
commandments.
to do
Well,
them.
it helps. It helps to know what those commandments are. You
So
know,
the next way to improve or develop your integrity, because this again, the word
real
improve
quick,
would
I just want to touch on one thing
suggest it's
really
not
fast,
perfect.
really
Go ahead.
fast. I'm sorry to say. So yes, I want to just say the Bible does say, and the translation says, obey my commandments. So many people who are not Christians, and even Christians, have an issue with that commandments part. It's like, oh, it's a commandment. And because we have this generation of people who hate being bossed around. Don't tell me what to do. Yeah, command me. You know what commands me. Hey, this is Bishop. The point is being the commandments that Jesus is referring to. They're not guidelines. It's not Pirates of the Caribbean. They are commandments, but they're more like requirements. They're requirements. Okay, they're things that you need to do. Okay, um, but they're all for your benefit. That's the thing that most people don't get. It's all for your benefit.
Yeah.
It's like
It's
if you're a
also
dad or a mom, and you command your children, you tell your kids to stay out the street.
Yeah.
That's not because
It's
you're
for
trying
their
to be
benefit.
mean. It's for
Yeah.
their benefit.
Even if you say it
And the
with
11th
a
commandment,
harsh
thou shalt not
tone.
cross this path into the driving zone whereth the car mightest squasheth thee. There you go. There you go. 11th
Verily, it
commandment.
smites thee.
Verily, verily, it smiteth thee.
I think that's a good point. That it is for our benefit. It is in order to bring us blessing, and it is a way of showing love. So therefore, it is not something that earns us salvation, but it is a response and a result of what we've already received.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so, knowing it is important. Avoiding the temptation, thinking in dealing with the temptation on one side beforehand by thinking, what am I going to do in this situation? Or when you're there, man, where's that escape hatch? which I think goes to my second way of improving it, is you know what's right, think and speak what's right.
Yeah. Think and
And
speak.
in order to think and speak what's right, you have to put all those right things in. One of the things Jesus said that I always thought was one of my favorites was, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, is one of the Bible verses. But he says, out of the treasures that are stored inside, the good man brings out gold
New and old treasures.
frankincense. Yeah, you're right. So it is what is inside that comes out. So you put those things in, and that helps you develop that integrity, because that's like patching the inside. All those things that you
absolutely right.
are believing that are untrue, you have to put in true things to patch it up to get integrity.
Exactly right. Yeah, if you're dealing with a leaky ship, you got to put the Bondo on the inside to stop the. No, don't use Bondo. I mean, don't get me wrong, Bondo's great, but if you want a good solid,
not for ships.
There's not. Hey, I've used a few Bondo on a few ships, but not for leaks. Anyway, sorry. But you're absolutely right. What you put in is what comes out. So if you spend a lot of time, and be very, very careful, even if you're not a Christian, you can be aware of this.
Mm-hmm.
Spend the time and pay attention to what it is you are putting in front of yourself, in front of your family. What are you watching on Netflix or Disney Plus or whatever streaming service, or what are you reading, or what kind of music are you listening to? Is it beneficial to you? Is it healthy? Is it good? I mean, I've seen a lot of movies. When I was younger, I used to watch some pretty dark movies, and they could take you to a really dark place.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't do that anymore. I read and listen to and watch things that are positive, because it puts me in a positive place. It keeps my mind focused on positive things. I read the Bible every day so that I can be filled with the positive things. So yeah. Right. And then you speak it out. I teach my students this all the time. When you read, speak. When you read, speak and read, because it's the connection between the mind, between the visual. When you read, when you speak out loud, you're connecting the neural connection with your mind and your mouth and your eyes and your ears. It's amazing.
That is true. Actually, I've that's how I've been making my kids do their spelling too.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Write it, read it, and spell it out loud. And they don't want to do it, but man, it makes,
because it feels weird. It feels weird, but it makes a lot of difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that goes along with number 3, which is do what's right. I had something else to say, and it's flipped away. But do what's right.
Yeah, that goes. Speaking of which, that goes along with the brain thing
and speaking. Because you know what's right, and then you will know what to do. And you one, it's a decision. 2, it's a desire, and so you have to have reasons to do what's right, because otherwise we don't. And I mean, from a purist standpoint, none of us does what's right. None of us is attempting that. But in making moral choices, we can do what's right. We have that authority, or we have that, not authority, but that power to make that choice. However, we can mess it up just by having the wrong intention or wrong motive. So there's ways but you just keep working at it, and then you build up that muscle of doing the right thing, even when it's hard. And here's the part that I think is cool when we talk about the spirit and the body, is the more that we put the things of God into our mind, not even just the things of God, but the things that are true and right and noble and lovely, the more we put those things in our heart, the more we want to do them.
Yeah.
And when
not only that, the more we see them.
Well, the more we see them. But then if you have God's spirit, he then helps to inspire the body to want those things as well. Not perfectly, because we're not perfect yet, but it helps. It's an improvement. It's a development.
Yeah, no doubt.
And then fourth one, which would be just keep doing the same things.
Yes,
Keep
repeat
putting
and
the good
repeat,
stuff
rinse
in,
and repeat.
keep putting the good
Yeah,
stuff
do
out.
it all the time. Continually repeat. The brain remembers. The mind remembers what it does. So what you're doing is what you are learning, and the more you do it, the more repetitive it gets. The easier it becomes. You make it into a habit. You make it into it starts off as a habit, and then it becomes a way of life. That's the way
Yeah.
everything is. And when you're
I
doing
think,
it,
go ahead.
it may get tough. It may be hard. It may be really hard to, if you're going one way, to go the other way. That's what's
Mhm.
called repenting, right? Isn't that what they call
Yeah.
repenting? Repent means turn
That
around,
would
right?
be it. Turn
So
around,
sometimes that's hard.
forsake the old
Mhm,
and go with the new.
mhm,
Yeah, I think especially if you have had either a single large breach in your integrity or a lot of little ones,
mm,
there might be a time of very strenuous and potentially painful correction as you try
mhm.
and repair those gaps and make right with people who you may have wronged, and even just make right with yourself or make right with you and God. To try and fix those holes can be a deal. It can be hard. So
Amen
keep
to
that
that.
up.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Amen to that.
do we want to finish off with the fool's errands here, or we want to wrap it up because we are over an hour, sir?
We are way over an hour. We've always been over an hour the last few times. Let's talk about it real fast because I'm curious to hear your thoughts about this
Okay,
fool's errand. And we did promise a bonus
we did.
about
So I
how
guess we have to do it.
about ideas for integrity and how to
All right.
integrity and purpose and
All right. So they are lined
putting
up.
those
Here
with
is the
your life.
fool's errand for the week.
What you talking about, fool?
It's become cliche at this point, but it's been for a long time. People telling others God loves you and has a wonderful plan for your life.
Yeah. This reminds me of all those back when I used to scroll Facebook, which I don't do anymore, but I used to come across those little memes on the Facebook. Somebody posted, repost this and and God will grant your prayers because he
You'll see a
has
blessing in
great
the next
plans
3
for your
minutes.
life. Yeah. Yeah. It's the 3 minutes. I love that one. Yeah.
So
Share this with 10 of your friends and you'll see God's love and blessing and he has a wonderful plan for your life. Come on, guys. Yeah.
here's where I want to take this and say that it is one of those instances where you're looking at something that is true, but the way that is presented is going to lead you in a direction that is false and that
Could
is
potentially, yes.
foolish,
Mhm.
because the way that most people hear this and the way that it is sometimes preached directly is because God loves you, he has a specific wonderful plan for your life, and he will always show you exactly what you need to do so that you get all the benefit and all the good. And all the things that you desire and dream of are going to come true because God is the Wizard of Oz. And that is not
Yeah.
a biblical
Mhm.
perspective.
The Wizard of Oz. I like that.
So
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. Not at all biblical. Not at all God. God
God
loves you.
loves you. True. God has a wonderful plan for your life.
Also
True.
true.
But it's his plan, not yours.
That is a fact.
And that
And
plan
and
is
it doesn't always include easy. If it always included easy, then well, I mean, I don't know how anyone would get the idea that included easy. Did anybody at all who was talked about who had a plan in the Bible, did anybody have an easy time of it? Name one person who had an easy time of it.
That's a tough one. Yeah. We are
I
actually
don't think it was.
promised trouble, and we are
Yeah,
promised
Jesus says.
some
And
level of suffering.
yeah. Mhm.
So God's wonderful plan for your life does not remove those things. God's
Mhm.
wonderful plan for your life primarily is about restoring your relationship or your ability to have a relationship with him
Mhm.
through Jesus so that your sins are forgiven and you can finally reach out to him again and have eternal
Yeah.
life. That is the primary plan.
And it's not even necessarily about the eternal life. That's just a benefit. It's about the connection. Can you imagine
Right.
if you maybe some people can imagine if you didn't have a connection with your dad or your mom?
Well, of course, I mean, plenty of
I
people
mean, I'm sure. No, no,
experience that.
I'm talking about. That's what I'm saying. I'm sure people can experience that, and they do, and they have experienced that. And that's. But those who have experienced that can probably understand better than those who haven't,
Mm,
or those who, because that is the connection times infinity
mm,
that God is trying to repair.
yeah.
That's the connection that Jesus came to fix, and that's the part that chokes me up every time I think about it, especially
Mm,
when I look at my own kids,
yeah.
because I wouldn't, I couldn't bear to break that connection. So, um, God loves you and has a wonderful plan for your life. Yes, He does. But you got to step into it. You got to step into that plan, and you got to recognize that it doesn't mean no pain. It doesn't mean no suffering. It means no, you're going to have pain and suffering, but it's still a wonderful plan
Yes.
because
So
it's going to be with your dad.
the bonus thought
Sorry.
is directly related to this
Oh.
because we talked about integrity, including agreeing with reality and the truth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And God's plan is reality. So when you
Yeah.
have submitted to that, suddenly you have a lot more purpose in your life, a lot more meaning in your life because you have reconnected with reality.
Yeah.
So the salvation that we experience because we have given ourselves over to Christ and repented and asked for forgiveness and accepted Him puts us back in line with reality on that core level. And from
Mm-hmm.
there, then we start to learn about all kinds of other things that may be a little bit more specific to us. So some people will recognize, I have this talent. Where did that come from? It came from God.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
you can really bump up the integrity and the purpose by saying, God gave this to me. I get to use it both for His glory and for the benefit of my fellow man.
Yeah.
In
Those
some
things that
cases, you
you
might,
love. Yeah.
yeah,
Those things that you
mhm,
love and you desire to do. That's oftentimes God telling you, hey, this is the gift that He's given you. That's the talent He's given you. I mean, you can see it in the Bible, and especially in the Exodus, where He's talking about giving the people the different skills that they need to do, the different
mhm.
jobs to build the tent and the
Yeah, the
tabernacle and the
artistic,
ark and all of the artistic talents. But and then David and the Psalms and all throughout the Bible, you hear
mhm,
about the people with the the skills and the talents that they're given. That's in you too.
right.
So don't
And,
make the mistake of discarding your desires, especially as some people teach. Some churches,
yes,
I've heard some Christians suggest that. It's been a while since I've heard that, but yeah, you have a desire. Desire is not always a bad thing. Okay,
yeah. Now you might have a desire that is outside of
um,
God's
yeah, yeah, I'm sure
stated
we all do.
plans,
Mhm.
but when you're talking about to build something, to create something, to pursue a good path
Mhm.
that is within his moral options,
Mhm.
if there is a deep desire there, and especially if there's a deep gifting there, you pursuing that again is just joining up with reality and increasing your integrity. And
Mhm.
through that, you get more purpose out of your life and more satisfaction because now you know I was made to pursue a certain thing. And it may not be a direct calling,
Mhm.
but I was made and given these things and I am using them well. That
Yeah,
increases your satisfaction in life.
yeah. And on the flip side, I think all of us, Brandon and I, can also attest to this. If you are not walking in that, if you're not walking in the skills, the talents, the calling, the things that you've been called to do, that you feel like you've been led to do, it you're going to have lack of satisfaction. The
Yeah, lack of
satisfaction goes down.
satisfaction. You wonder, why
And
am I doing this stupid thing?
yeah, you wonder, why am I doing this?
Even if it's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could
Yeah,
be a
now-
good. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. It could be a good thing, but it's not your thing.
And this is
It's not the
not
thing that
this
God
is
gave
this
you.
is not the same as follow your heart.
No, not the
It's
same.
more nuanced and more detailed than that. It is, yeah, there
Mhm.
may be a strong desire, but there also has to be some level of affirmation that you have skill and talent there to enhance and in pursue.
What, you
But
mean
that's
I
also
can't go become
still
a singer now?
it's also still not a guarantee of success.
No, of course not. Of course not. It's still, you still got to do the work. Come on, man.
Well, even
Come
if
on,
you do the
man.
work, there's
Even if
a
you do the
warning.
work, there's still not a guarantee of success. Of course.
Exactly. There's that warning in James about you guys are idiots for thinking I'm going to go to this city and do all this business and make a ton of money. He's like,
That's right. Because
you might be
you should
called
be
home
saying,
tomorrow.
God willing. Because you should
Yeah.
be starting every one of those
Yeah.
statements with God willing. I'll be doing that. And because it is all in God's will. So
Right.
however, I do believe that there, when you start walking into what God is calling you into, uh, you're going, two things have happened in my experience. Number one thing is, when you start walking in integrity and you start walking in what God has called you to do, you are going to have a lot more favor. Things are just going to start happening, and you're like, "Whoa, how did that happen? Whoa, how did that happen? Whoa, that's like a miracle. How did that happen?" That's going to happen a lot more, and you're going to wake up and go, "This is just crazy." At the same time as all of those wonderful things are happening, you are going to be under constant attack in the spiritual realm, meaning all these, negative, bad things are going to happen. Are going to happen to you. Sickness and bad, you might have a financial problems and all of these things. That is called being over the target. That's when because all of this stuff is wonderful, but let's not forget, we are in a war, a spiritual war. And when you are in a war, and when you are getting close to the target zone, the bad guy, the enemy, does not like that. And so they do other things to take you out. And being over the target zone means getting closer to God. When you're getting closer to what God's made you to do and called you to do, things are going to start to feel really good. But then the attacks are going to start to come. Be ready, be on your guard, and watch out.
I would still also caution against the feeling really good.
Oh,
is because sometimes the things that we may feel a strong desire for are
the feeling
terrifying.
is going to be really good when, because you're walking in the things that you're called to do. You're being connected, and things are lining up. When I meant feeling good, it feels good because things are lining up. You're like, wow, I can't believe it just happened. I mean, good example. I tried a bunch of other things to make money, to do business and all this stuff. Now, years ago, I felt like God was calling me to teach, and I didn't want to do the teaching thing, because I didn't, I tried a little dabble to here, dabble a little bit there, but it wasn't until when I finally got into the groove, what he made me to do and to teach, and the way to teach, bam, it's like, it clicked, and things started going ding, 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 ding. And I was like, wow, this is great. And I meant what I said earlier. This is like the best job I ever had in my life. But it's not been the absolute perfect cakewalk, because there is always a little spiritual battle. And when you get closer, when you get closer to God, something's going to happen. So anyway, I'll leave it at that.
You have God's spirit and you have
joy. But it feels good.
But the other thing I would just say is, we've talked about calling. Not everybody feels like they have a calling, or they don't necessarily know what they were designed to do. So that's why I said, look at your talents and skills and use them.
That's a guide,
because you've already been gifted that way. And then as you try to do what is moral and try to develop the way that the skills you have been given, you may discover something more specific down the road. That would be the starting
Yeah.
point instead of hey, I
And
already
it's
know.
always exactly. Because
Walking
I'm still
with
figuring it
God
out.
is not a step-by-step process.
Yeah, they didn't sell the book, or if they did sell it, they sold out because I ain't never seen it.
It is a
It's
messy
not,
endeavor because we are messy.
well, and it's meant to be an adventure. It is. It's an adventure.
Again, it's a relationship. It's
Yeah.
love,
Mhm,
which is cool.
mhm.
All right,
Yeah.
brother.
All right, we've been on the phone. We've been on the phone, this thing for a
90
long time.
minutes.
So 90
So
minutes. Well, that's only an hour and a half.
we agreed we would finish up with this little announcement here.
Mhm.
Speaking of integrity, we talked about a decision-making process last time because I was going through a decision-making process. That decision has not been fully clarified and fully made, but some things have been clarified that in order to help maintain my integrity and develop it better, I need to drop some things and shift some things. And so I am going to be in an attempt to at least do one thing, which would be write more and get more books out and focus on that aspect of what I've been gifted, to say we're going to reduce our efforts here and look at doing a once a month
Yeah.
podcast,
Once a month show.
once a month show instead of every other week. And so that'll give me extra time and also hopefully give us a better chance to sort through our topic and maybe congeal it
Have a little
bit
bit
so it's a
more.
little tighter.
A little tighten it up a little bit. Plus,
So-
it'll hopefully give me time to focus on the other thing that I've been led to start doing, which is teaching on a video similar to this with
Teaching teachers.
on
Oh,
the
yes,
YouTube.
right. You're
On the
you're,
YouTubes. I've got
your
my
English
YouTube channel going on, all about
Yeah.
English, on YouTube, and I'm doing English news we're talking about.
So
It's fun.
we will not be back in 2 weeks. We will
no
put it up
next
on
month
the Facebook
sometime.
or the Instagram when we are ready to do our next show. We'll give some announcements there. And obviously, if you're subscribed, you'll get the notification when that video gets uploaded or when we're live. So
That's right.
We'll see you somewhere before Thanksgiving, I think.
Not if I see you first. It better be before Thanksgiving. Hey, send me a turkey too, man. It's hard to get turkey.
Send you a turkey.
No, that's not gonna happen. The last time I had a turkey for Thanksgiving was a couple years ago. A friend of ours ordered a turkey. The thing was the worst, most miserable, skinny looking turkey I ever saw in my life. I mean, no breasts whatsoever. I was like, wow, this is definitely a Korean turkey. Skinny legs, no breasts. What a shame. What a shame. There was no meat at all. And
you probably didn't have the stuff for gravy either.
Oh, come on. Gravy. It's easy to make gravy.
I know.
Come on, man. No,
right.
The good thing is a skinny bird like that, she was done in no time.
Okay.
And anyway.
Well, with that,
I don't know what you've
been.
Dad Save the Internet. Rolling your head. Yeah. Dad Save the Internet. That's what this show is.
Woo!
We are trying to save the internet.
Oh, man. Wow. Hoping to do our part to make the world a better place, make the internet a better place, primarily by getting back to common sense and ancient wisdom from wonderful places like Scripture. So if you do like what you are hearing and you do want to catch us next month, subscribe, hit that bell thingy, and catch us on YouTube.
Leave a comment. Leave a comment or an honest review. Absolutely.
Honest reviews are good.
Definitely.
We like those.
Definitely. We like those. Facebook is great. We love Zuckerberg. Sure we do. And Instagram.
We use the tools available.
We use the tools we got. And we're also on Rumbleaya.
Yes,
just because we are rumblers. That's what I like saying. I'm a rumbler.
Okay.
Yep, that's the only reason. No, I'm kidding.
We'll catch you later,
guys.
Stay out of trouble.
Yeah. You too.